cried the bellman in wrath as he heard the butcher beginning to sob. Should we meet with a jujube, that desperate bird, we shall need all our strength for the job. They sought it with thimbles, they sought it with care, they pursued it with forks and hope. They threatened its life with a railway share, and they charmed it with smiles and soap. Then the butcher contrived an ingenious plan for making a separate sally, and had fixed on a spot unfrequented by man, a dismal and desolate valley. But the very same plan to the beaver occurred. It had chosen the very same place, yet neither betrayed by a sign or a word the disgust that appeared in his face. Each thought he was thinking of nothing but Snark and the glorious work of the day, and each tried to pretend that he did not remark that the other was going that way. But the valley grew narrow and narrower still, and the evening got darker and colder, till, merely from nervousness, not from goodwill, they marched along shoulder to shoulder. Then a scream, shrill and high, rent the shuddering sky, and they knew that some danger was near. The beaver turned pale to the tip of its tail, and the butcher felt even more queer, till he thought of his childhood, left far behind, that blissful and innocent state. The sound so exactly recalled to his mind a pencil that squeaks on a slate. "Ah, 'tis the voice of the jube-jube," he suddenly cried, "this man that they used to call Dunce. As the bellman would say," he added with pride, "I have uttered that sentiment once. 'Tis the note of the jube-jube. Keep count, I entreat. You will find I have told it you twice. 'Tis the song of the jube-jube. The proof is complete if only I've stated it thrice. In one moment I've seen what has hitherto been enveloped in absolute mystery, and without extra charge I will give you at large a lesson in natural history. As to temper, the jujube's a desperate bird, since it lives in perpetual passion. Its taste in costume is entirely absurd. It is ages ahead of the fashion. But it knows any friend it has once met before. It will never look at a bribe. And in charity meetings, it stands at the door and collects, though it does not subscribe. Its flavor when cooked is more exquisite far than mutton or oysters or eggs. Some think it keeps best in an ivory jar, and some in mahogany kegs. You boil it in sawdust, you salt it in glue, you condense it with locusts and tape, still keeping one principal object in view, to preserve its symmetrical shape. The butcher would gladly have talked till next day, but he felt that the lesson must end, and he wept with delight in attempting to say he considered the beaver his friend, while the beaver confessed with affectionate looks more eloquent even than tears, it had learned in 10 minutes far more than all books could have taught it in 70 years. They returned hand in hand, and the bellman, unmanned for a moment with noble emotion, said, "This amply repays all the wearisome days we have spent on the billowy ocean." Such friends as the beaver and butcher became have seldom, if ever, been known. In winter or summer it was always the same. You could never meet either alone. When quarrels arose, as one frequently finds quarrels will, spite of every endeavor, the song of the jube-jube recurred to their minds and cemented their friendship forever. They sought it with thimbles, they sought it with care, they pursued it with forks and hope. They threatened its life with a railway share, and they charmed it with smiles and soap. Then the banker, inspired with a courage so new it was matter for general remark, rushed madly ahead and was lost to their view in his zeal to discover the Snark. But while he was seeking with thimbles and care, A Bandersnatch swiftly drew nigh and grabbed at the banker, who shrieked in despair, for he knew it was useless to fly. He offered large discount. He offered a cheque drawn to bearer for £7.10. But the Bandersnatch merely extended its neck and grabbed at the banker again, without rest or pause, while those frumious jaws went savagely snapping around. He skipped and he hopped and he floundered and flopped till, fainting, he fell to the ground. But the Bandersnatch fled as the others appeared, led on by that fear-stricken yell. And the bellman remarked, "It is just as I feared," and solemnly tolled on his bell. He was black in the face, and they scarcely could trace the least likeness to what he had been, while so great was his fright that his waistcoat turned white, a wonderful thing to be seen. To the horror of all who were present that day, he uprose in full evening dress, and with senseless grimaces endeavoured to say what his tongue could no longer express. Down he sank in a chair, ran his hands through his hair, and chanted in mimsiest tones words whose utter inanity proved his insanity, while he rattled a couple of bones. "Leave him here to his fate. It is getting so late," the bellman exclaimed in a fright. "We have lost half the day. Any further delay and we shan't catch a Snark before night." They sought it with thimbles, they sought it with care, they pursued it with fox and hope, they threatened its life with a railway share, they charmed it with smiles and soap. They shuddered to think that the chase might fail, and the beaver, excited at last, went bounding along at the tip of its tail, for daylight was nearly past. "There's Thingumbob shouting," the bellman said. "He's shouting like mad, only hark! He's waving his hands, he's wagging his head. He has certainly found a Snark." Oh, they gazed in delight, while the butcher exclaimed he was always a desperate wag. They beheld him, their baker, their hero unnamed, on the top of a neighbouring crag, erect and sublime for 1 minute of time. In the next, that wild figure they saw, as if stung by a spasm, plunge into a chasm, while they waited and listened in awe. "It's a Snark!" was the sound that first came to their ears, and seemed almost too good to be true. Then followed a torrent of laughter and cheers, then the ominous words, "It's a boo!" Then silence. Some fancied they heard in the air a weary and wandering sigh that sounded like "Jam." But the others declare it was only a breeze that went by. They hunted till darkness came on, but they found not a button or feather or mark by which they could tell that they stood on the ground where the baker had met with the Snark. In the midst of the word he was trying to say, in the midst of his laughter and glee, he had softly and suddenly vanished away, for the Snark was a boojum, you see.